We're in your biology in chapter 16, and we're going on to mammals, and we're down to the rodents, Rodentia. That's the order, and there are 9 mammals. Rodents, they have these 2 pairs of sharp little chisel-like teeth that don't wear out because they keep growing throughout their life. So they have to keep chewing or chiseling away to keep them from growing too large. They're very destructive animals, especially with human in the human domain, because they follow man wherever he goes. You'll find rodents. There's 2,000 species. That's a lot of rodents, 2,000 species. There are more rodents than all other mammals combined, and they're very much widespread across the entire world. The size, they go from a tiny mouse to a 4-foot capybara of South America. So they vary in size. In the midst of these, you have porcupines, gerbils, hamsters, squirrels, chipmunks, beavers, and rats. There's some rodents there. See the capybara up there in the corner. It's an unusual one. Rodentia. Let's talk about mice. Okay, we all know about mice. There's the common house mice, and it's on every continent, including Antarctica. Because basically in homes in Antarctica, they have rotten mice there. So they make these nests of shredded, and they shred this material up, and so they cover up and they go wherever there's food, and they find their nest and make their nest in the midst of houses. They feed on human food, paste, glue, soap, and household articles. They do more damage by gnawing than eating, and they can survive on very little food. In the wild, they eat seeds, roots, leaves, stems, all these of plants. But most of the time, they follow man and eat men's food or garbage. They're most prolific. That means they breed really quickly, and they may have, in 1 year, have 5 or more litters of a lot of mice, a lot of little mice. They can reproduce when they're only 35 days old. Can you believe that? And so, how do you control mice? Well, we know that we have some really effective animals that control mice, such as, God's mouse catchers, which are cats, weasels, owls, and snakes. See if I can move this up a little bit here. It seems like there we go. Okay. Rodentia rats. I do not like rats. They look like mice, but they're larger and stronger and more aggressive. And some are as large as house cats. Can you imagine a rat that's as big as a cat? 11 inches long. And that's excluding the tail, but most are smaller than 11 inches, of course. They breed rapidly too, 100 young per year, and they seem almost impossible to exterminate sometime. When they're threatened, the survivors become stronger and more productive. So the more you kill them, the stronger they get. And the method how to control rats is with sanitation, because they love living in dumps and waste products of mankind. So to have good sanitation and keep clean of wastes does more than rat traps. Rats carry disease, some of them fatal to man. In history they had the bubonic plague, which were fleas on rats. And as soon as what they did is they thought that cats, were evil, so they killed a lot of cats, especially in London. And so then the rats, got prolific and just basically overpopulated, and bringing to the fleas and bringing bubonic plague, and killed a lot of people. Also, they carry diseases of food poisoning and typhus. So they cause millions of dollars of damage by eating stored grains, gnawing on furniture, gnawing on pipes, gnawing on wiring. That's what rats do. Capybaras is a rodent, the largest rodent. It's 4 foot and weighs 132 pounds. So it lives in South America. It's usually east of the Andes and in some of Central America. They graze near the lakes and rivers. They're no real threat to man at all. They're very easily tamed and they're a very good pet. And they look like a giant guinea pig with webbed toes. They swim very well with their webbed toes, but jaguars love to eat them. Squirrels, Rodentia squirrels, we know about them too. They're like the size of the rat. There's 250 species, different species of squirrels. And certain types we know, like ground squirrels, chipmunks, woodchucks, marmots, prairie dogs, tree squirrels, and flying squirrels. Those are just some of them. The gray squirrel is the most common. It lives in the hardwood forests with oaks and maples. Oaks and maples are hardwoods. And then we have the red squirrel that blends with the reddish pine bark in pine trees. And it lives in the coniferous forests of southeast United States usually. And you have the red one and the gray one. And then we have other tree squirrels too, but all of these tree squirrels hibernate, but they wake up occasionally to eat from their stored nuts. They store up nuts and seeds for their hibernation period is what we're saying. So these are squirrels. Ground squirrels, a little bit different. You can see ground squirrels here and they kind of stand upright like that. They're shorter and they have less bushy tails and a larger feet for digging burrows. And they find shelter in logs, under logs or rocks. And they rise up on their hind legs when they're alerted to danger. They eat seeds, nuts, roots, leaves, bulbs, fungi, insects, birds, and eggs. And then they're a prey of coyotes, bobcats, weasels, lynx, and hawks. So they're these ground squirrels. Flying squirrels, okay. They have their home among the tree and they love hickory nuts. And they have this gliding flight. And their flight is way different from bats because they glide instead of the power of flight like bats have power. And they have more gliding. They lean forward and they push with its hind legs and they spread all four of its legs at right angles so that the flaps form a square. See how the square is there? See that square flying one at the top? So the tail is used as a rudder so they can turn and they can balance. And they have a spur on their wrist that's used to tighten or slacken the flap a bit. Can you believe it's like a kite. They can actually slacken their wings. That's pretty amazing. And by dropping the legs of one side, they can give an added lift to the other side and can turn or bank or turn sharply and dive, real steep dives, or rise sharply. They can maneuver this way as flying squirrels. Quite amazing. The Rodentia woodchuck. So groundhog, probably. It's a stalking burrowing rodent in the squirrel family. Looks a little different there. It's like 27 inches long and weighs 13 pounds. And it can be very destructive to farms and ranches, especially in the United States, in the eastern United States. It has a huge appetites and very burrows very easily. It can build these tunnel complexes that are covered by these high mounds, and the holes can be hazardous to livestock because if they make this big huge hole in the ground, they lift the hole in the ground. What happens? A cow or a horse can step in the hole and break its leg. So it's important to watch where woodchucks are living, especially with animals and even humans. We could step in a hole and break our leg. Rodentia gophers. So they're halfway between the squirrels and woodchucks in size. There's a gopher. They're pretty homely, huh? They populate in Central and Western America. They belong to the whole family of their own. They're burrowing. They display this community behavior. They live in long, complex underground tunnels with hundreds of them living there, these gophers. So, sure of gophers. A lot of times you want to get rid of gophers because they can burrow through your property and make all kinds of holes. Beavers. Okay, beavers. They're in the Rodentia family. So the largest rodents in the United States are beavers. And they can be 46 inches long and weigh 70 pounds. They're ingenious engineers, and they construct these large dams to support their water homes. And they do this, and they build. They're great builders. They build them of sticks and mud, just sticks and mud, sticks and mud, whatever they can find. And the backed up water, which never freezes solid, keeps a steady place to rear their young. So they use these areas that they build to rear their families. They store their food. They take the barks of the saplings, willow and aspen, poplar, birch, and other trees and store this food there. The beaver dams can be 75 feet in length, but some are longer. But the longest beaver dam is in Alberta, Canada, that we've seen, and it's 2,790 feet long for a beaver dam. Can you believe that? These huge dams are maintained by their generations. That means that they're generations of beavers that live there. And but they can build a whole dam. Just one or two animals can build a huge dam. So an example would be they were watching these two Canadian beavers, and these beavers cut down 266 trees in 15 months and built 3 50-foot dams, 50 feet long, and lodged in with a capacity of 1,000 square feet. It's almost the size of a bedroom. So just two beavers built this whole dam that was almost the size of a human bedroom. Can you believe that? Beavers are not really intelligent, but they use the skills that God gave them. They're builders. So, and they have these large, big tails, and which makes them excellent swimmers, because the tails, basically with their tails, they swim with their tails, you know. But they also communicate with these tails. They'll, like, when they sense danger, they'll loudly slap their tails in the water with their tail when they dive, so they can tell the other beavers there's danger coming. Beavers, quite unique. And then we have rodentia porcupines. These have long, stiff quills on their back and their sides and their tails. And the quills are a very sharp bristles made of keratin, and they can attack with their quills, attack their predators when their predators come. And their quills come out easily, and they have barbs on their quills, so that the quill goes in, and as they attack their predator, the quill goes in, and the predator can't remove it. And so the animals fall victim and often die of these festering wounds from these quills. Because bacteria get into the quills and they can't remove the quills, they'll get this big, huge bacteria. And especially if they have a lot of quills, they can become sick with the bacteria and die. But the great horned owl, despite the quills, it preys on them. So they still have a predator. Dermoptera are the flying lemurs, and these are not lemurs. Lemurs are primates, remember. So they thought they looked like lemurs, so they called them lemurs, but no, they're Dermoptera, a new order. They live in the nocturnal jungles of Malaysia, Thailand, Borneo, Java, and the Philippines. And like I said, they were once confused with lemurs, but now they have that name, kind of confusing though, because lemurs are primates. Anyway, they're about the size of a cat. They have the slender body, long neck, and a dog-like head, there. And they're the longest gliding mammal. They can glide up to several hundred feet at a time. It's a long ways, several hundred feet. And this is made possible by this large leathery membrane stretched from behind their head to their tail. You can see that picture there, this membrane that they use to fly. And they can spread 27.6 inches. That's a big spread. What do they eat? Mainly fruit, but some flowers and some leaves. And the young like to ride on the mother's back, like a lot of different mammals do. Dermoptera means skin wing, so they have a special name. And dermal means skin, and optera means wing. So they have skin-like wings, as you can see in the picture. They are not rodents based on the fact that their teeth don't keep growing. So they are not rodents, they're Dermoptera. Okay? Flying lemurs. really another unusual type of mammal. Lagomorphia. Lagomorphia are the hair-like animals. I wanted to say that right. Lagomorphia. I always say lagomorphia, but it's lagomorphia. And this order are your rabbits, hair-like rabbits and hares. There's 90 species of them. That's quite a bit. Their teeth are similar to rodents, but they have 4 incisors in their upper jaw instead of 2. And these include hares, rabbits, and pikas. They're herbivores. Their tails are short and their hind legs are longer than their front legs. These are your rabbit family. Lagomorphia rabbits. So let's talk about the regular rabbits. Well, they're very well known. Their only protection are their keen senses of smell and their speed. They're very fast. They can jump 16 feet and run 35 miles per hour for short bursts. They're very agile and they often zigzag to elude their predators. So when they're being chased, they zigzag off to the corner, this corner and that corner. And sometimes they even backtrack on their own trail to confuse the predators, because the predators are hunting by scent, so they backtrack so that they get the predators confused. Lagomorphia hares. So hares are much like rabbits, but they're larger, like 25 inches long usually. The hares are bigger. And they have longer ears, as you can see in that picture of a rabbit and a hare at the top. Their large ears act like radiators to expel excess heat. So they're a very excitable animal and they create much heat. They're quick movers. But if they didn't have their ears, they would die because they'd overheat, because most of their heat comes from out of their ears. Wow. So when their babies are born, their eyes are open and they have a full coat of hair, but rabbits' eyes are closed. Baby rabbits' eyes are closed and they're naked, but hares are not. And they eat plants and roam at night and they live in the grassy hollows, but rabbits burrow in the ground. So there's a little different habitats for hares and rabbits. A jackrabbit is actually not a rabbit, but a hare, and it's in the Southwest United States. Also, the snowshoe rabbit is not a rabbit, but it's a hare. So you gotta make sure, as you know, the hares are bigger, they have bigger ears, and they have different habitats, and they raise their, as their babies are born, they're born differently. So, or I should say they look differently when they're born. Lagomorphia pikas. These are very unusual. They're very small, only 7 inches, and they have short ears. They kind of look like a guinea pig rather than a rabbit, don't they? They live in Asia, Europe, and Western North America. In America, they live in the mountainsides beyond the tree line, so they live above the trees, so they like the cooler climates. And they spend much time collecting food for winter because they have long winters. Pikas. And this is Hyracordia, which is hyrax. This is another unusual, but actually, can you believe hyraxes were in the Bible? They called them conies in the Bible. And they're kind of a defenseless animal, although they look scary, and they make their homes in the rocks. They're rabbit size, they're herbivores, which mean they like to eat plants, and they live in Africa and the Middle East. That's why they're in the Bible, because they basically in Israel. They look similar to rabbits, but their teeth are arranged differently, and their teeth are arranged differently from lagomorphs too. So you see their teeth a little different. Hyraxes have hooves on their toes and pads on the soles of their feet. Can you believe that? The pads on their feet help them to cling to rocks for protection, and they live in colonies of 5 to 50. These are hyrax. You can see they're kind of cute, aren't they? I think that's our last, and we're going to go on to our second group of mammals, which is in the next section. So we mammals 3. So we're just going through these mammals, and we're going to get through them and finish up chapter 16 on mammals.